everyone, and welcome back to a third episode of 10 for the Producers with a third producer. I just want to take a moment to thank everybody in the community and all the subscribers that make this possible. So I'm Travis Day.
I'm Darian Vorlick.
I'm Alex Mayberry.
All right, guys, so our first question comes to us today from Wallamenis. Are producers like project managers with whips and bullhorns? Aside from CR, are you the guys who give the green light for a release?
We've got our executive producer here who can kind of give a better definition of that.
Sure. Producers are certainly project managers. That's part of our job. I don't know that we use whips and bullhorns, but we do help set deadlines. We partner with all of our developers to make sure that they know what they need to do, they know when it needs to be done by, and that there's nothing stopping them from doing those things. When it comes to a green light process, ultimately at the end of the day, it's Chris Roberts who decides, whether we release something, but we all take part in it. It's a big project and a big organization, and there are a lot of voices that need to be heard to make sure that the game is ready to go out.
Yeah, kind of nice thing here. We've got different stratifications on who oversees what. Where you've got Alex who oversees everything on a global level, and you've got me down at the bottom who just sees little small side projects or smaller scope of projects, and Travis is kind of right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how apropos.
We're like one of those Russian dolls that you can stack them on top of each other or within.
Yeah, a nesting doll.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just about whether something's ready for release. We also make sure that, if we're crunching, people are fed, that, if we're traveling, people will have their itineraries and their flights booked and their hotels booked. So, we try to make sure that everybody has their needs met, and that's also part of the job.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, something you said that's a really good point, because a lot of people have this idea that producers are like taskmasters.
Right.
And that could not be farther from the truth. It's like, yes, we deal a lot with tasks, but the interest is not, hey, where are you at? Why aren't you doing this? It's more like, hey, here, look, I'm organizing your life. I'm organizing your day-to-day. This is all, gives you clarity, and it's really it's a partnership.
And our responsibility really is to get things done,
mm-hmm.
but we're not the ones who do them.
Yeah.
And so it's really not effective to run around with whips and bullhorns, because that doesn't really inspire people to do great work. Instead, we need to partner with them and make sure that they know they can count on us to line everything up that they need.
What we can do to support them, make sure they can get their stuff done.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was you that said this, like, if you have a room full of producers, there's probably not a lot getting done in game development. Yeah.
I've said that many times.
All right. Second question comes from EKS. Can you provide clarification regarding the update referred to as double precision? Is this only to update map size, or will it allow the game to use more memory as it relates to the 64-bit update?
So in this particular case, when we talk about double precision, yes, the goal is to update the map size. Basically, with single precision, what you end up running into a lot of times is precision errors, meaning that in world space, and that's what we're talking about when we say double precision, is world space double precision. It is like increasing the fidelity of your grid. And so when you normally in single precision have a whole bunch of different things attached, like for example the helmets. If you guys notice, if you get really far out to the edge of the map, your helmets and your visors can start to jitter and shake a little bit. The reason you're seeing that is because they're only about, I think it's 8 centimeters from your face. So as you are out, say 5,000 meters from the origin of the level, it's now trying to calculate your world position, but then maintain accuracy for something that's only 8 centimeters from your face. And as it starts to round things, since it only has so many bits that it can store the number in for your position, it starts to introduce more and more error, and it gets compounded when you're doing things like, especially on the visor, where it's the origin of the ship, then you do a bone transformation to find the pilot seat, and then you do a transformation to find the character's head, and then you do a transformation to curve the shader of the glass, and all of those math problems are just compounding the error more and more, and then every frame, when it does that, you get a slightly different result, which gives you the jitter. So that is what we're trying to do, and then with double precision, you get maps that are potentially so large that it's never going to be an issue. Now, when we talk about allowing the game to use more memory, that's more of a Windows thing and how Windows sees the game. So currently we compile the game in 64-bit, so it has the memory capacity of a 64-bit game, so it's not limited in that capacity. But that is a Windows standard, not a we're doing that in the engine standard. That's how you compile it.
Yeah, I'd say, anybody that's done a lot of modding, let's say, Unreal or Quake, the hollow mirrors effects you'd get when you'd compile a map, that's a precision error. That's a case of a vertex not being exactly where it should be because it's been rounded, and it creates an error, and you get that kind of effect.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
You got nothing. All right. Next question.
You read this one.
This is from Juris Storm. What is the process for introducing new game or game ideas? Is there a formal process, like a scheduled weekly meeting where studio heads can introduce ideas for discussion and approval, or is it more informal? I think it's both.
Yeah, that's.
We certainly have a weekly, leads meeting where all of the studio heads and department leads meet over Skype, and we discuss what we're doing, and we discuss ideas, and those get kicked around. But then we also have Chris will come up with ideas and tell us what his vision is, and then we'll carry that forward. We have a design council that kicks around ideas, and then we also have the players in the community. We constantly read the forums and listen to ideas that are coming from the players. So it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing I've observed at this company is like, way back in the day when I was starting in QA, it was always kind of frowned upon to put in your suggestion bug, but I would say that this company is super open, like Chris especially is super open to QA feedback, and he's always trying to get QA reports, QA feedback, what's the balance like, what's the feel like. So I think ideas come from all places in this company.
I agree. I've always had that philosophy through my whole career, like a good idea can come from anywhere. You don't have to just be a designer to have a great idea.
A lot of our stuff comes organically anyway, and right in the middle of a meeting where it's like, maybe we can tackle it this way instead, or we found that this didn't work, so why don't we come up with this, this kind of missile, this type of gun. So there is an informal process to it.
Well, and then there's just the process of playing the game itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have company-wide play tests where everybody jumps in and plays, and then afterwards they give feedback, and from that feedback we come up with more ideas.
Killed it.
All right.
Indeed.
Question 4.
You want to read that one out?
Sure. Next question comes to us from Krell. There's been a lot of discussion around the modular design concept and how it relates to the Cutlass variants, swapping cells for medical bays or for more cargo space, etc. Can you talk about how it will apply to the Constellation variants, specifically with regards to the interior of the Phoenix? Everybody's looking at me. So,
you got to have the most tribal knowledge regarding the modular system, I think.
You are the ship producer.
Yeah, so this is a good question. It is something that we talked about with the Cutlass variants immediately following Cutlass Gate, as you might remember. The idea of making modular ships is both, well, it's more fun for the community, right? Because you can kind of buy one variant, but then go find or collect or otherwise purchase the component parts to make it into another variant, mix and match, and it kind of allows for a lot of custom options. So the Cutlasses are undergoing that treatment from Foundry 42 right now. When we talk about larger ships like the Constellation, it's funny because I don't know that we'd actually talked about that, but that's kind of the system that we're wanting to move to for a lot of the, I call them sub-capital but bigger than a single-seat fighter kind of a ship, where they'll have larger interior spaces with form and function, so that as long as all of them subscribe to a similar layout on the interior space, you should theoretically be able to swap out different functional areas. So like say, if you have a med bay that is a certain size and has this number of sleeping pods, maybe that's exchangeable for a bounty hunter holding cell area with similarly shaped logic there. So that's kind of the next step of the room system, and the idea of the room system for the hangars eventually to be used on capital ships, but it's kind of a baby version of that for subcapitals.
This next one comes from Haiku Knives. One of the big selling points of Star Citizen has been the immersion factor. We can kind of see it already with the HUD being actually rendered inside the ships and helmets. What are some challenges you've faced or compromises you've had to make while trying to make the mechanics have diegetic universe interfaces? So this is where we actually went to one of the developers to kind of get their feedback on this particular question. And we went to our UI guru, Zane Bien, and here's what he had to say. In-universe projected interfaces, while extremely immersive, are also affected by a multitude of game and environmental variables, which in many cases might negatively impact accessibility. For instance, if the seat is positioned just a bit too high, too low, too near, or if the field of view is too low, vital information may be lost as a result of being clipped off the edges of the player's screen. If the instrumentation is too small or too distant, then readability can become hindered. Too big, and it can be overly intrusive on the viewport. These are just a few of the factors we actively take into consideration when modeling the screen and instrumentation layout in the ship cockpits, ensuring that the interface remains accessible to you as a pilot while still allowing the flexibility for compelling diversification in style across ship manufacturers. So again, that information comes from Zane BN.
Damn, he's eloquent.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But also brings to light how much detail we try to look at the UI on every perspective. That if we want to make, let me rephrase that, the difficulty of creating HUDs for each one of our ships has to take all these factors into consideration.
No, it's like you're designing an actual ship.
Yeah.
No, it would be so much easier if we just did a screen space HUD, bloody screen for damage, and call it a day. It would kind of suck, but it'd be so much easier.
But given that each spaceship has its own unique style of cockpit, you got to give Zane much props for being able to come up with a unique HUD for each one of these ships while keeping perspective of how close the player is to the screen, how close you are to the HUD, how close you are to the helmet, and so forth.
Yeah. No, and him and Mike Northeast have spent a tremendous amount of time going back and forth on what is all the pertinent information? How do we catalog it? Where do we put it in the player's view space? What view space are they most likely looking at most of the time? So it's
and how much real estate each thing takes up.
Yep.
If it's going to be distracting, what are the players going to be most likely to reach for in the cockpit? That's a lot of stuff to think of.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. The next question comes from Shinnikins. Once the persistent universe is live, how will the patching updates work? Will the patching be a dump, one which just drops everything under the sun to your hard drive, or could it be more intelligent and patch essentials, instead loading new areas, changes to them as you explore them? Well, I would say that our patcher launcher technology right now is just really still in its infancy.
Yeah.
It's a very polite way of saying it.
We certainly want to continue developing it so that it is a smart patcher and gives you the data you need, not just everything. I mean, the fact is, if we just did the game is huge right now, and it's going to just continue to grow, so the data footprint is going to be massive by the time we get to the persistent universe. So, you know, we don't want everybody to have to download the whole game every time. But it's a work in progress, so it's something we're still building upon.
So looking at other technologies like streaming, things like that.
You know, that's being handled by the DevOps team in Austin. So, you know, they have a lot of plans to continue to upgrade and evolve the launcher and patcher so that, you know, as we continue to add to the game, it gets more streamlined.
Yeah.
It's Jeremy Masker's group.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would love to see us have a system like a game I really love, which is World of Warcraft.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, it's I think a game that
I might have
a
heard
few
of it.
people know of it. Yeah, but no, I mean, I love the idea that it is so much more targeted and intelligent about the data that it's giving you.
Right, and if you go back in time in WoW's history, it didn't start that way.
Yeah.
You know, it was pretty ugly in the early days.
Yep.
But you know, with years of development time, you find better processes and will do the exact same thing. Fortunately, we have a lot of experience in the company who have been there and done that, and so we're not exactly starting from ground zero.
Next question comes from Zappa. Is there or will there be female perspective with regards to design, functionality, and character aesthetics? I think a good reference to look at is the Cutlass commercial. Here we see a pilot taking on a Vandal scythe, and when she, you know, blows him up, she comes, lands in the hangar, takes off her helmet, and you realize it's a woman piloting it the entire time, showing that she's pretty kick-ass. So I think that right there is a good indicator of how we want to keep things, I guess, I don't want to say gender equal, that sounds so politically correct.
Well, no, but I mean, almost just like reflective of the real world. I mean, 'cause
Right.
that's immersive, right? And I mean, women are lawyers, they're doctors. I mean, I don't mean it sounds weird when I say it, but it's like, it would seem odd if you have a bunch of women running around scantily clad, or, you know, some games it kind of breaks the immersion when you're like, that doesn't make any sense, or that doesn't look right. So
I'd rather see a bunch of kick-butt warrior women.
I think you know, realistic is what we're shooting for,
Yes.
right? We don't want our females to be portrayed as fantasy avatars.
Right.
They should be an extension of who you're playing, and they should look like they belong to the world.
And I figure how many hundreds of years in the future, I think differences between, or any perceived differences, imagined or real, will be negligible at that point.
Yeah. So we're trying to keep it real. In fact, we are right now finalizing our female base model that we're going to build upon, and players will have the option to pick their wardrobe and swap costumes out and environment suits and all that. So a lot of the way that the female will be portrayed will be up to people playing the game.
Yeah, and realistic because it's a scan, not just
Right.
not just an artist's interpretation of the female body, I guess.
Exactly. All right. What is next?
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real.
Yeah.
This next one is from Mateor720. Would it be possible, or are there plans to develop an application that would allow players to use their tablets as programmable control inputs? This way players can input commands like what is shown in a lot of the cockpits.
Yeah, so this is that idea that you could have like your, what does it Microsoft call it, the second screen experience or something?
Right.
Yeah, and so you could have your iPad there loaded in and it knows you're in a constellation. So there is definitely a plan to do a companion app.
It was one of the stretch goals.
Exactly, and what the extent of that is and whether it goes as far as to have awareness of what you're piloting at the time in the game and be hooked into that level, maybe. So yes, would it be possible? Absolutely possible. Anything's possible with enough time and engineering. Are there plans? Well, we think it'd be cool.
It's a
But
goal.
it wouldn't be the immediate, I don't think we need it tomorrow.
I think the answer is it's not being worked on right now.
It's not being worked on, yeah.
But it's a goal we would like to, it's something we'd like to develop, and it's on our list of stretch goals, and it's something we'll look at.
And what details that kind of companion app would have is still kind of up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, it needs a designer to design it.
Yeah, and by the time we do work on it, we don't know where tablet or mobile technology is going to be at.
It would be super cool though. Have you seen the videos of some of the people that have converted like their living rooms into like a constellation bridge deck and having those and being like, having your guys next to you and you're all, oh man, that'd be fun.
I actually saw someone on the forums made a companion tablet app that could actually change their equipment. It actually, I believe they were actually inputting in-game commands to like shoot their guns while they were in Broken Moon, playing against Vandal. I could have swore I saw them actually using a tablet to actually enter commands.
Oh.
So the tech is there, and
You sure he wasn't just updating Facebook or something?
he could have been.
Well, maybe we should rephrase the question then. Are there plans? Are you guys working on it? No.
All right, what's next?
Our next question comes to us from Corrupt. We know you guys have to reallocate resources when it's crunch time to get vital items on the list done. How do you deal with people's pet projects? If they have done all their work by Thursday, do they get to work on something of their choice on Friday? Are pet projects only allowed in their personal time, quote, off the clock? Well, I like the idea of running it like Montessori. You have this many math assignments for the week, and if you get them all done by Friday, you can go outside.
I went to Montessori school.
Me too, in third grade, yeah.
Well,
A little bit of everything.
I mean, I think the first thing to understand about any development schedule is it's not written in stone, right? You don't just make a schedule and then it all just works. It moves around.
It's a moving target.
Shifts. Yes, it changes every day. And so, when it's time to get something out to the players, we have to make decisions, and then we have to decide what's more important than something else. And we have to say, yeah, I know you're working on this thing right now. We need you to stop, and we need you to focus on this, get that done, and then when you're done with that, you can get back to this other thing.
Yeah, and I guess that goes back to another thing that's kind of, nice and unique about us is we're not shipping a disk.
Right.
So just because this person puts this on hold for the final push to a patch doesn't mean it's never getting done ever and it's cut forever from the game will never happen. It just means, hey, until 3 weeks from now, table this, and then we'll come back to it.
Yeah, we have a backlog of things that people would like to work on, or things that we'd like to see implemented into the game. And on top of that, we try to at least gear tasks towards people's specializations anyway.
Yeah.
We're not going to give, a UI design to someone who maybe wants to program missiles. So we want to make sure that people who are actually working on the project are invested emotionally and mentally in that particular aspect of the game.
Yeah, you want them to be passionate about it. And I think it kind of dovetails nicely with the other question about where and how do design ideas come about. Where a lot of people, when we talk about people's pet projects, generally to me in this context would mean like a prototype for something, a design for something, and Calyx is I think famous around the office for coming up with all kinds of crazy prototypes of illegal racing, and he created that test level ship graveyard where he has his own like call sign
I think,
insignia.
didn't Murray Cup come up this way?
Yeah, Murray Cup is one of those things that was initially an idea that was bantied about. It was a piece of thing in the lore, and somebody was like, racing would be cool. And
I thought I recalled, I don't know who did it, but I thought I recalled seeing a very simplified version of a race map that then was kind of the genesis of what Murray Cup became. But originally it was sort of a test piece. Like, hey, I built this to test the ships and fly them around, and then that sort of evolved into, hey, we could make that a thing.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen Calix's hologram city. It's so fun to fly around that it makes me want to do a racing map in a city.
What's this hologram city?
It's like literally, it's one of the backdrops for like, I think it's ArcCorp.
Okay.
And then you can just like fly between all the canyons and valleys of the city skyscrapers.
It'd
It'd be incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool.
All right.
All right. Last question comes from Tac Buzzkiller, aka Buzz Killington. Seems like missiles are currently very powerful and overly difficult to evade using countermeasures. Is the signature system being used by the missiles and countermeasures in 1.0 currently working as intended, or can we expect fixes, changes in the near future? And that's a ubiquitous, unanimous yes.
It's working fine. As intended, never getting changed.
We like the way fire and frigate missiles work. Period.
Missilgate, you heard it here.
You guys are joking.
Yes.
That's actually one of our big priority tasks right now, is getting the missile system tweaked and balanced enough where it's a lot more enjoyable for players to use, and it's not so one-sided.
Yeah, it's definitely not balanced yet. I mean, we put out 1.0 right before Christmas, knowing that it wasn't balanced, but the idea was we wanted to get an update into the players' hands so that you have something to play over the holiday. But right now we have people on the floor working on balancing the system and improving it. So the next patch, it will definitely be updated.
Yeah, and specifically in multiplayer, there's definitely an issue with them being spawned on the client but not on the server, which makes it really hard for the missile to get attracted by something it doesn't know is there.
That's true.
So it is one of the top priorities.
Well, that's our 10 questions.
Yeah.
Done. Okay. What do we say now?
Well, I think we say thank you for
Right.
all of your support and your continued backing, because without our players, we would not be sitting here answering these questions.
And even more importantly, because we are sitting here, thank you to our subscribers for making our presence on this camera possible.
And thank you for getting us to bring Alex Mayberry onto our show.
Oh yeah, thank you for inviting me, because otherwise I would be over there with my head in some spreadsheet probably.
Like nothing at all.
Like, it wouldn't be a producer if we weren't face down in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So I'm Darian Vorlick, production coordinator.
I'm Travis Day.
Alex Mayberry, executive producer.
All right, hey, thank you guys. I'll see you all next time Chris is out of town. And thank you for having us again. And see you in the verse.